Hello, my name is Rukmini and I'm back with part 4 of this series on holistic health. We've explored in the last 3 aspects of the series, how do we build holistic health? What are the factors that we need to invest in? And we've been working with this framework, which is called the PR6. And so far, we've explored the factors of vision, of composure, and of reasoning. In this talk, we're going to be speaking about this very interesting factor that's called tenacity. Let's explore how tenacity helps us in building holistic health. Tenacity is the ability to persist. It is the ability to stay with situations that are challenging for just that much longer each time. In the long run, it builds persistence, it builds motivation, it builds confidence and self-esteem. And in the process, we bounce back sooner each time as we face challenges in life. And these could be challenges of various kinds. We could develop tenacity in the context of health, in the context of physical injuries, in the context of relationships, professional setbacks, social issues, and so on. It's about increasing our ability to persist with problems without getting bogged down, without getting depressed, without getting physically impacted in a negative manner. That's the idea of being tenacious. Why is this essential for health? It's essential for health because persistence is key to various aspects of life, including sustaining health. It takes persistence to exercise regularly, for example. It takes persistence to stick to a diet that is balanced and nutritious. It takes persistence to be able to maintain relationships, to be able to climb the ladder in terms of your career, and so on. So persistence is essential, and it has, of course, a very direct link to tenacity, because tenacity is really about deploying persistence, staying in a situation, no matter how bleak it may seem in the moment. Tenacity also helps us learn from mistakes. It lets us know that, yes, things will go wrong, failures will happen from time to time, and at the same time, we don't have to wallow in it. It is all right to grieve. It is all right to mourn. It is okay to sometimes feel bad and have a little bit of a, let's say, a bad mood. However, we do not have to let that mood become a habit. It is essential at some point in time, once we've expressed what we feel, to move on, to sense into the next moment, to use our sensory organs, our eyes, our ears, other senses, to tune into what's the reality now. And reality keeps changing. It is always dynamic. And from that new reality, look back at the mistakes, reflect on it, look at what we've learned, integrate that learning, and move on from there. That much more stronger, that much more wiser. So tenacity also helps us learn from mistakes. And it teaches us also that realistic optimism is healthy. We're not speaking about throwing caution to the wind. We're not talking about denying that bad things may happen. But it's about learning to look forward to life in spite of the challenges that it brings us. And that's an extremely healthy attitude, not just mentally, but also in terms of the physical implications that the outlook has. So what is it that we can do to build tenacity? Here are some suggestions. A researcher called B.J. Fogg speaks about this idea of tiny habits. What he means by tiny habits is that very often our excuses for not doing things we need to do or we would like to do is because we believe we don't have time. So the idea of tiny habits is about saying that we don't have to invest huge amounts of time in order to build a habit, in order to do things that are healthy and essential or things we like. What we can do instead is to make sure that we attach tiny habits. Habits could be as small as 30 seconds or 60 seconds, but attach these habits to things we do every day in life, right? These things that happen on a day-to-day basis are called anchors. And you anchor new habits to these things which happen every day. For example, we brush our teeth every day, we have a bath every day, we have breakfast every day, hopefully. We go to sleep each day, and so on. So there are these activities which happen no matter what on a day-to-day basis, right? So when we want to create a tiny habit, for example, if I want to create a habit of reading regularly, but I believe that I don't have the time to read for, let's say, 30 minutes a day, what I can do instead is to promise myself that every day, just before I go to bed, just before my head hits the pillow, I'm going to read for 60 seconds. Just that much, 60 seconds, right? But what happens in the process is when I do 60 seconds each day, I might end up over a period of time reading a significant amount. And for all you know, once you start building that habit, when I start enjoying those 60 seconds, it's very likely that I might choose sometimes to extend that 60 seconds into 2 minutes or 5 minutes and so on. And in the process, the habit cultivates. And these tiny habits can be created around everything, right from exercise, a little bit of movement, perhaps even a mindfulness activity, breathing, and so on. And these tiny habits in the long run help us be tenacious. They build that capacity to stay in that situation just a little bit longer, and that's all we need. We just need that marginal improvement, but that improvement needs to be continual, and that's something that tiny habits enable. Another thing that helps us be more tenacious is to reflect on our mistakes, not be ashamed of them, not feel guilty about them, but to notice that yes, they have happened, things have gone wrong, I goofed up about something, and what can I learn from this process? So, reflecting on mistakes as a fact of life without having the need to go into judgments, going into a space of defense or labeling oneself or another. Instead of that, simply looking at what is it that I can learn? What is it that I can avoid doing the next time? And what is it that I can do differently the next time? That's another thing that helps us be more tenacious. And a third and an interesting thing that can help build tenacity is the idea of what's called fear setting. Tim Ferriss speaks about this idea of how fear setting is just as important as goal setting. What fear setting entails is to think about things that we are afraid of, things we think might come in the way of our goals, sometimes even in the way of life in general. And to name these fears, articulate them in words. Against each fear that you've named, also think about ways in which you can actively prevent them. So think about multiple ways, if possible, in which you can take proactive action in a way that that fear does not come true. And at the same time, also think about what Tim Ferriss refers to as repair mechanisms, as ways to do damage control should the worst happen, should that fear come true. What are things that you can do? The moment you do such an exercise around fear setting, a lot of the charge, the emotional charge around the fear goes away because you've already named it. You've figured out what you can do about it. So even if things do go wrong, even if the fear does manifest, you're that much more prepared. You're not going to panic in the moment. And therefore, you're able to stay with the moment, even if things are challenging. And that ultimately is the tenacity that we're speaking about. So do try out these things to be more tenacious. And I will see you the next time with the 5th part of the series.
Help Talks are daily health-related talks held at Health Education Library for People. Mumbai, India. For more information visit www.healthlibrary.com. Subscribe to HelpTalks channel. Be better informed about your health.